you tell us a bit about how you got started in the strength and conditioning world, working with in Denmark, etc.?
Yeah. Oh, it could be a very long story, depending on how much time you have. I come from track and field or athletics myself. I think my interest in strength and conditioning definitely grew from training in a sport where you just train a lot of different stuff.
Yeah.
So I used to be a triple jumper and a long jumper. National level, okay, never international, unfortunately. But I spent a lot of time with that, and that kind of led me into one of my coaches when I was a youth athlete. Came from he was studying at the university, and he was studying sports and education. And I was really intrigued on how I could see my training programs changed from when he was just a regular coach to when he started to get in to be an educated coach. So I thought, okay, I want to go that way. And I remember I had biology in my studies, and I really liked the physiology part. So that kind of just tuned me into applying for the university and trying to go that direction.
Yeah. Mm.
Then I spent a lot of years studying and trying to learn about the human physique and what it can do and what it can't do. And I just kind of felt that I wanted to. I started working a bit with handball players and some individuals that would like help or sparring in how to jump higher or sprint faster.
Mm.
Very
Yeah.
classic strength and conditioning approach from 20 years ago, where
Yeah.
track and field was just like the sport everybody turned to. And that gave me a way, I guess, a passage into a lot of sports. And I just found out I really liked learning a new sport, not to do the sport, but to understand the sport and then try to apply principles for strength and conditioning to that one. And that just ultimately led me to first a weightlifting job here in Copenhagen, and
Mm.
then luckily I got my I was introduced in Team Denmark for just a couple of hours a week in the beginning, and my first athlete was a badminton player.
Mm. Can you tell us who it is?
Oh,
Or is it a secret?
well, that's not a secret. Joachim Fischer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Was he at his end of his career when you started working with him? I forget when he retired.
Oh yeah, can I remember that? I started in Team Denmark in 2009, so that's quite a few years ago.
Yeah.
And he was still in his career, I think, because he won bronze in London 12, I think, 2012. I think he got the bronze with Christina.
Yeah, I think so.
So probably he retired in late 19, something like that.
Mm. Yeah.
So he was the first one I started coaching and trying something else with that than what he was used to do. And luckily he performed. And when somebody tries something new and they perform, whether it doesn't have anything to do with the new stuff, then people around get curious. And
Yeah.
that was my break, that he performed really well and won medals. And then the other
Mm.
guys and girls wanted to try new stuff as well.
Yeah. And now I have to ask, what was the new stuff? What was the old stuff he was doing? What was the new stuff you brought in?
Well, I think that the new stuff, when we look back that many years, was to have a structured approach, setting goals for what you want to change over time. So not just looking at what should I be able to do in a match, but trying to analyze what do I need to be able to play at an even higher pace, jump higher, or keep jumping high,
Mm.
maybe more of that in the matches. I guess it's just the sport wasn't as evolved in terms of strength and conditioning at that time. So if you had a pure physical body talent, you were really good. And if you didn't have that, then you probably wouldn't perform as well because no
Mm.
one trained really well.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fascinating that it was the same way with one of the top players or like top players in the world, like 30 years ago, that they could be at that level without knowing that much.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, and it was a funny period because some of the players actually trained together in a club with weightlifters. So they did specific
mm,
weightlifting training, and they lifted heavy and they squatted deep. And then
mm,
there was just a big bunch of the players that just didn't really do strength and conditioning. They ran maybe some intervals and sat on a
mm,
bike, and they were in the gym. It
mm.
just wasn't good gym work what they did.
Yeah. Yeah. And I have to ask you again. So when it's not good gym work, how would you define that not being good? And then how would you turn it to be good?
I think at that time, I just think for most of the people, it just wasn't heavy when they lifted heavy.
Mm.
So strength training wasn't really strength training. It was more maintenance at a
Mm.
too low level for most of the people because they hadn't been educated in how to lift heavy and how to train, most of them. So at that time, I think they needed to be pushed harder in the gym and to learn to lift heavy and find out that they didn't break when they lifted
Mm.
heavy. Whereas if we zoom into now, I would say it's mainly it's maybe more the opposite direction actually, that too many optimize in too many areas at the same time.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah. 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 That's a tough challenge for you to work with.
Definitely.
What is the most challenging thing when let's say because you work with, I guess, do you work with every player that's at the center, or
No,
how does, no?
the federation. I'm hired by Team Denmark or working
Yeah.
for Team Denmark, and Team Denmark
Yeah.
is just like I guess in your country is okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
so I'm not hired by badminton, but all the federations in Denmark can apply for expert help
Yeah.
for each year and apply for money as well. So they can get me or one of the other strength and conditioning coaches. They can get dietitians, nutritionists,
Yeah.
physiology, physiotherapists, and all that. And
Okay.
then I've just been doing that part from Team Denmark for
Mm.
the Badminton Federation since 2009. But last year, I think they hired their own strength and conditioning coach in the federation. So now
Mm.
I only have 11 players now, I think, instead of the 30 players I had at one time, and he has the rest.
That is a big difference. 11 to 30. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot better. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I get it. Do you work mainly with the singles player, like the group you have now? Is it more doubles, singles? How does the
I
split
have
look like?
more doubles now, which used to
Oh,
be actually the other way around. But I have, more doubles players, and I have mostly mixed doubles players, and then men's doubles.
hmm.
Then I have no women's doubles, and I have no women's singles, and then I have men's singles.
Okay. And how does it? Yeah, because then it sounds like your job can vary a lot depending on the level of the players that you have at the center. Is it really tough? So let's say you would get into the next few years and it's a lot of, now it's only women's doubles, only women's singles. How much would you have to study the category of women's singles? Is it more looking at the player you have in front of you? How does that work?
Well, I think we do that quite a lot actually. Look into
Okay.
to each category and the
Yeah.
different work demands that are in there, and then overall, all players are just so different. I mean, you
Yeah.
just take just in Denmark, take Vita Axelsen as one men's
Yeah.
singles, and then Magnus Johannesson as another one.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
you can't compare what they are able to and should be able to do in a court or in the gym for that matter. So it is a really individualized approach. So every women's singles are different, and so is all the mixed doubles players. But of course, there's some things for each category that if you do not have this, you probably won't be world class. And then we have to try to find that and see if we can make it happen. So I
Yeah.
really like having the different categories, but I really it's been a pleasure always also to have more focus on mixed doubles for the last couple of years and have more of those
Mm.
players, and then they take up more of my time
Mm.
because then I get better at understanding that category, and I have more meetings with the coaches for that category, and that
Mm.
just makes it a lot easier for me to design the programs that are actually helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, Makes a lot of sense. But now also, just because I asked about the different categories, now that we have the change going on with 3 sets to 15 instead of 21,
Mhm.
how much of your time has been spent trying to figure out what will change? How can we start working now to be more prepared until, 2027?
Yeah, I think we haven't. I think back to actually the question before, what's the biggest
Mm.
challenge? Well, of course, that's the calendar that
Yeah,
people are
yeah,
traveling 25 plus weeks a year. So they
yeah,
are always jet lagged or away. And so are the coaches. So having the time to sit down and look into from next year, something changes. What are we going to change? Or are we going to
mm,
change anything? I think that's maybe the biggest challenge, that it's really hard to find time to plan ahead and think ahead for that matter. But of course, we think about it. I think there's a lot of different attitudes and different thoughts around it. I hear some players saying, "I don't think it's going to change much," and other players saying, "This is going to have a huge impact." And
mm,
again, leading into the categories, I think some categories are going to be impacted a lot more from this than others. So, of course, there's something that's going to change. We don't know exactly how it's going to unfold, but we just started the process together with our analyst team,
mm,
just to look into what knowledge do we have from the few tournaments that have been played with 3
mm.
times 15. There's been some Indian Badminton League and Purple League where they played 3 sets to 11, 5 sets to 7, I think, something like that.
Yeah,
And it changes. It appears to change something.
yeah,
15 is not few points, but it's just not as much as 21. So it's not short, but it
mm,
is of course maybe 30% shorter. Uh, so yeah, we're trying to think and be innovative about what will
mm,
happen, but in reality, we don't know what will happen other than the matches will be shorter.
yeah, yeah. Do you want to speculate about what's the like looking at it now? Just saying in the product, what do you think will be the main difference?
Well, I think the main difference in one aspect would be that, of course, shorter matches means more time to recover from match to match,
Mm,
which hopefully will mean that people are more fresh in the end of a tournament than they are right now, because you've played less minutes in average, at least. But then, of course, there's the possibility that if you are even fresher, and because you have to play for shorter period of time, you may push the tempo even more. I'm not sure
yeah,
they can play that much faster, because if they could, then it would make sense to do it already by now. But maybe
mm,
they can play faster for more duels
yeah,
consecutively.
yeah,
And that will have another impact on fatigue, which we don't know
yeah,
yet. So in that way, they could hit them harder, but they have more time to recover.
yeah,
So I think it would be even more fast paced, or at least that the system will favor the athletes or the players that play with a high aspect of power and speed. And if you have a great attack, you got to win the net, and then you can win the match. You can't just play it around. You
mm,
can't physically just tire people out. And some players do that now. And probably that would be harder to do when you play for shorter periods of time.
yeah, yeah. I've also been thinking a lot about because of course the duration of the match will go down, but what I thought was that since the intent, you said it as well, but just the intensity that is it's much higher. I feel that, and of course we don't know yet, but I just feel that it will be a different kind of load on the players that
Yeah.
will start to come.
Yeah.
But it will be interesting to see what will happen. Hopefully, we'll have another interview in a year or so we can talk a bit about that. But it was great to hear what you, yeah, how you're addressing the situation right now, and that you really can't do much because it's the schedule is so tough.
Yeah. And I think we just wait for, if mainly, first of all, if the coaches want to change something in their training, then it gives us room to change something in the strength and conditioning. But
Mm,
we don't see any reason to change anything in the strength and conditioning now if we don't change anything in the on-court training, because
mm,
those things should be aligned in some way. And of course, what they do on court, of course, I hate to admit it, but it is more important than strength and
yeah,
conditioning. So we need to
yeah,
get that aspect fixed first, and then we know how much room do we have to move in the strength and conditioning.
yeah, yeah. That makes a lot of sense. I watched your you did lecture, I believe, lecture or something about it was I think it was released 9 years ago. I think it was about badminton, but I think it was like a table tennis federation that uploaded to
Oh yeah.
YouTube.
Yeah.
And I saw your example of the of the tournament schedule.
Yeah.
And I mean, from that point of view, I wasn't jealous of your job at all. It's so intense.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
I mean,
yeah.
if you want to, if you have already reached your top level and it's about maintenance, then of course you can actually do that in the system. And if you are ranked high enough that you can actually, you don't have to play all tournaments to get the points you need to stay in your ranking,
Mm,
then it gives us some possibilities to be actually fresh for the big tournaments and especially for the championships. But if you're a young player trying to get into the T2 and at the same, so you need to play everything because everybody else plays everything. And
yeah.
then you also try to become better technically, tactically, mentally. And then of course you need to change something physically. It's just, it's too much to do at the same time. So it's really hard and a lot harder now to get a young player in the center and then say, where do we want to be in 2, 3 years? That was pretty easy in retrospect when we look 15 years back because
Mm,
they didn't play as much. So there was
mm,
a lot of time to train and adapt to the training. And now
mm,
we don't have time. Or maybe we can build them stronger or better. But if they don't play enough tournaments and win enough points, it doesn't matter because then they don't play anything.
yeah. And then it feels like if that's the case, which it makes sense, then it seems like it would, like what they do from 10 years old up until they get into the center is the foundation. It seems much more important now than before.
Yeah.
If yeah, do you work anything with the younger players coming up? Like no, nothing.
No,
No.
only if they are like Victor when he started
Yeah.
or like Anders Antonsen,
Yep.
because of course they were young, 16 or something when they started at the center, but
Yeah.
they were all, within a year they were in the top 20 or whatever. And then it's
Yeah.
just a different story. But all the youth players are not touched by Team Denmark in that way. Maybe there
Mm.
are some talent programs, but they are related to the club system
Okay.
or the city they live in.
Yeah.
And we don't have that much to do that. Of course, we try to put out some how can you say, benchmarks. They have something to aim for,
Mm.
but
Yeah.
there's not enough people to help them out there. Definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. And probably that would be this. No matter how many resources you have, you always want more. I
Mhm.
would assume as well. So yeah, but you've done quite well in Denmark to create some top class players.
True. Yeah, and I remember actually having a pretty funny discussion with Kenneth Jonassen a couple of years ago when he was here, talking about exactly I really wanted the players to have a better physical foundation when they started at the center.
Mm.
And I was probably whining about why can't they do a perfect clean and a perfect squat
Mm.
when they come in? Because if they could
Mm.
that, it would be so much easier for me to apply the exercises
Mm.
we want to get the
Mm.
gains we want. And he was just really good at telling me that. He just looked at me and said, Mads, yeah, I get that. But strength is easy. Badminton is really difficult.
Mm.
And that's just
Mm.
spot on. Of course, you need a
Mm.
strength base and endurance and everything. But if you have all that and you cannot play badminton, technically,
Mm.
tactically,
Yeah.
whatever, then it doesn't matter. So the
Yeah.
clubs should mainly build good badminton players. And then if they are really good badminton players, then we can always fix whatever we need around the
Mm.
physique. But the other way around, we can't make world class that way.
No. 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 Yeah. I agree again because it's like getting really strong. If the technical, like you won't smash harder if you have bad technique, but you're getting really strong. It doesn't work. It doesn't make sense. Or if you're really fast, like a sprinter, yeah, but you can't move. You
Yeah.
can't do a split step, like all the basic things. So um, it makes a lot of sense, but still, it's the clubs also have to do something for
Yes.
the place.
Definitely.
But I think it's improved a lot, hasn't it?
Yeah. Definitely. When people come in now, it's totally different story than 15 years ago.
Mm,
Definitely. And again, it may be a bit more dependent on some clubs do a lot of work in this area. And then now they have the Badminton Denmark has centers in all the regions of Denmark trying to lift the area as well. So, and you can definitely see that when people come in, but it's still something that we need to be better at. And some clubs, and that goes just not just for badminton, that's all sports. There's still clubs where you just don't do strength training ever.
Yeah.
And there's clubs where you do a lot of it. And that's just how it is, I think.
Yeah. How much strength training do you think you need, or like strength and conditioning? Let's combine it. Let's say for players 14 to 16 years old, 14 to 17-year-olds, how much do you think they should do,
Well,
and
yeah,
what should they do?
it depends on when you want them to peak, because right now there's a lot of talk about, especially, of course, the French, that has a lot of, especially in the men's categories, that just they are really well playing and physically really well conditioned, and they win titles as 17, 18, 19 years old at the junior levels, and that's impressive. And if you want to win as a junior 17, 19-year-old World Cup, then you kind of need the full package to do that. But and that's been the classic way to look at it in Denmark, is that if you peak too early, you probably won't make it at the senior level. Of course, some people do, but they are usually the odd one out. So if you optimize too soon, it's not optimization, and nobody knows exactly when too soon and what too much is. So I think when I look at 14 to 17-year-olds, I think, of course, they need to do strength and conditioning, but mainly with a focus of learning to do proper strength training and proper conditioning training, endurance training, so that you can do a squat. It might not be that heavy, but you can actually do a squat, and you can do a half squat in another way, and you can maybe do single legs or split stands. So you kind of have a wide foundation of exercises that you can actually do technically adequately. And when you get on a bicycle, you know how to reach your maximum pulse. You know what that feels like. And you know what it feels like when you do speed endurance training where your thighs burn, and how that feels. So kind of you have an education in what you'll need later. And then we start to apply it more. And the older you get, the more important it is to do it with quality and not just good technique.
Yeah. And at what age do you recommend them doing some of your hurricane sessions?
All ages, because it's just a really good way to hit them down below the floor. Well, I think you can have two main focuses of the hurricane training. You can either use it specifically for trying to build some sort of mainly anaerobic capacity, because that's what it is. It's just lactate training. But you can also, depends on what you've kind of put into the sets, then you can also do it with a more technical approach, or do it with a more endurance, maybe even aerobic approach. So it depends on what you want out from it. What would it lead to? And I think main reason I really, really like it with badminton players is because they kind of tend to go harder in a hurricane than in a bike interval session, because the feeling is more like the feeling when everything burns in badminton. It's still not badminton, but it's closer to, and some of the elements are more transferable to badminton than maybe just being able to press watts on a bike. So doing it for actually gaining something, not too early, because it's not strength, it's not badminton, it's not endurance, it's something in between. So what do you want out of it? But if you know exactly what you want out of it, you can put the sets together and get exactly that in a way you can't do any other places. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. And I also realized that probably a lot of my listeners don't know what the hurricane sessions are. So could you explain what the hurricane is,
Yes.
why it's good, and when to use it?
It's first of all, it's not my concept. I would love it to be. I think it's what is it called, Martin Rooney or Mark Rooney. He's done strength and conditioning for a lot of different martial arts and MMA, I think. And he kind of he developed this system that you take some of the different parameters that you compete on
Mm.
in his case, martial arts. And then he said, okay, there's a component of endurance. Okay, so we're gonna find something that has that. It could be 600-meter rowing. That's definitely a component of that. Then there's a component of max strength in wrestling. For example, you need to lift something heavy. So I guess he would take maybe a sandbag at 60 kilos, and then you'd have to slam that 4 times. And then he would have some element of either technique or power or core, whatever. So usually 3 different things: one that's conditioning or endurance wise, one that's strength wise, and one that's more power, technical, core. And
Mm.
then you combine those 3, and you do that in sets that matches the work time you have in your sport. So if you go around in a martial arts sport that's maybe 3 minutes, then he would want a set to take 3 minutes, and the rest be the same as when you compete.
Mm.
And then I just took that and said, okay, we could match that for badminton. I say, okay, there's also an endurance component, a strength component, and a power core component we could take. So usually we would
Mm.
take some sort of rowing or cycling or assault bike, of course, always a favorite,
Mm.
and then do that for a certain time, and then find something that's more strength, which could be front squats or something like that. Then sometimes we take badminton footwork, and then we have some sort of core exercise, and then
Mm.
we do more or maybe more time, because then we want one set to take 15 minutes for classic badminton hurricane.
Mm. Mm.
And then you have these 3 exercises, and you go 3 rounds in those exercises. Then you have 2 minutes rest, and then we move on to the next 3 exercises we put in the next set. And then you have 3 sets in total. And then we should land on somewhere between, yeah, if it's a tough one, it's 45 minutes. If it's a killer, then we go 60 minutes. We really rarely do that because that's so hard.
Yeah.
And then usually we go maybe closer to 35 minutes. Yeah,
Yeah, that's intense.
it is. And
Yeah.
then it's again, the intervals are so short that you can actually do it quite powerful. So it's not 600 meters rowing. It's more like maybe 200 meters, and then do it as fast as you can. And then
Yeah.
something you have to do that's explosive, throwing a medicine ball or jumping, something like that. And then maybe a 30 seconds of renegade row plank or something like that.
Mm.
So you kind of have all systems going at the same time, but each exercise is kind of a short rest from the exercise you did just
Mm.
before. So when you
Yeah.
get back to the assault bike, you can actually go all in again. And then luckily you get a rest, and then you get better.
Yeah, that's torture.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Yeah, but you join them sometimes, right? I think I've seen you join them for a few of those.
As often as I can, I join them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But I come from track and field. I like training, really. And I like feeling what I believe the athletes are feeling. Of course, I know they are much better athletes than me, and I can't compare it in that way. But still, I really believe in trying to do all the programs I give out,
Mm.
and I can't do that as well as 10 years ago. But still, classic strength and conditioning coach giving a program and saying this is easy. You could do this easily. And when I try it myself, I think, okay, wow, these 2 together is just
Mm.
too much for whatever. So it's just a wrong setup, and I need to do it myself to feel it.
Yeah. 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 I also try as much as I can to do what I give to people because I agree, and I've made a lot of mistakes doing some program that on paper seems fine. So
Mhm.
yeah, sounds good. And when do you use? Because I think I've seen you do it probably before leading up to some of the bigger tournaments,
Mm.
like when you try to do the heat.
Yeah, heat stress.
Yeah, heat stress. Yeah.
Yeah.
So your players are doing it right now.
Yeah, I have some of the players doing it right now.
Yeah.
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 So usually
Fun.
for the doubles players, it's become kind of a thing we do several times a year,
Mm.
and usually do instead of we could as well, because mainly when we do it, it's to move their anaerobic capacity. and maybe the aerobic power as well. We could have done that doing a multi-session or doing footwork or doing just sitting on a bike. And for some of them, we still do that because that's the best way to hit them without hitting something else. But there's still some of especially the doubles players, where they really like it and they really dedicate themselves to going all out in a way they're not able to do maybe on court, because then we just hit the same structures as they hit the rest of the week. So it's harder for the joints, and maybe they're not able to go as high in pulse or in lactate when they go on a bike because they're not as good cyclists as they are badminton players. So usually when we have time, say, okay, now we have 8 weeks before a big tournament where we want to be the best possible place physically, then okay, we can actually see if we do this once a week, then that should have done something when we enter. Or maybe do it for the first 4 weeks and do it 2 times a week. And then hopefully we've changed so much that we can, do a little less leading up to the championship.
Which do you have a category of players in their categories that complain the most about doing the hurricane sessions, or is it you can't really say?
Well, they all complain, I think, but at the same time, they all actually like it.
Yeah.
I actually think that a lot of the players that hated it in the beginning kind of tend to like it now. I have a lot of the players that's been here for a while, so oldies, goldies, and of course they kind of maybe now feel what they remember. Okay, I did this at that time, and that was actually pretty good, and now I think I need to do something about something again. Okay, let's do this because I remember it. I remember how tough it was. So there's a lot of them actually getting back to it and wanting to do it.
Yeah, but I think it's also fun for those players just to have some variation as well, because I haven't played at that level, of course, but when you've done the same thing for so many years, it must be, of course, you can't love badminton the same all year round. But do you do any more like alternative training for the players, or is this the alternative training you do?
I think this is not probably the main alternative that we do, which is not badminton and not strength, but something in between.
Yeah.
I guess if you have players at a recreational level that want to do something strength and conditioning wise, then that would be fine for them to do as well, because it hits so many areas, a bit like CrossFit. But the important thing is you need to do it smarter than CrossFit. It shouldn't just be hard. It's really important in a hurricane that you don't make it too hard for shoulders or whatever, because then we just injure them instead. So I put a lot of thought into how to set them up. And then I think we have for especially again back to mainly the doubles players, we've done a lot of working with power bands on court, trying to build some power, sometimes endurance, doing it in intervals again, but doing footwork on the court, or maybe even a multi-session, but with a heavy band that restricts your movement. But usually when we do that, it's a bit more one-on-one. And for this player, we are working on, especially when you have to go close the net in your backhand. The footwork technically needs to be in place, and then you need to know which leg to push out on at which moment you want to do that. So then it's really specific. Okay, this very specific thing on court, we want to make that better. And for this player, it's more about moving to the back end of the court and jumping and then moving forward again. So that's more like, okay, the coaches come to me and say, I think this player, he or she is really good at closing the net in the backhand, but struggles a bit more in the forehand. And it might be technical, it might be tactical, but it could be physically, or footwork and physical at the same time. And then sometimes we just try and say, okay, then let's see if we can be a bit geeky about exactly how you do that movement. And then we take the ball away. So now we just move you and some resistance, so you can feel when it works, when you push, and you can feel when it doesn't work. And then at some point we might put the shuttlecock in play again. So that's more like fine-tuning different things, and it looks cool, and they love it. It's more like badminton, but you could really waste a lot of time there if you don't have a good plan with it, because then again, you're just doing something that looks like badminton, but isn't.
Mm.
So we do a lot of that, but that's much more, okay, for this athlete right now, I think maybe we could find something here. Let's try. And then we try it.
Yeah, that sounds sounds smart, and it's also good to hear explanations of why you do things, because usually, we see things on Instagram
Mhm.
without the context,
Yeah.
so it's hard to understand. Like, should everyone do this? Usually, I've learned that what we see on Instagram from the professionals is not something that we necessarily should copy,
Yeah.
because it's a very different thing being a low level player, like not even international, just low level local player, compared to Antonsen or someone else.
Yeah.
It's a difference.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, but then I also get the feeling that when I've followed your work, it feels like you are very creative in your role. So it feels like you invent stuff for your players a lot. And it seems like you really you push them, the athletes and yourself as a coach.
Hmm.
And now I have to ask you, how do you have anything specific you do to improve as a coach? How does your training look like?
Well, I think, first of all, then being in Team Denmark instead of being employed by Badminton Denmark, that gives me a lot of colleagues.
Mm,
I have, in my team, which is a physiology team, we are 10 people,
mm,
biomechanists and people who works in the lab, other physiologists that work mainly on testing and have different certain areas they are experts in. So there's a lot of sparring going on right
mm,
there, where we're just sitting together in a room and somebody talks about what they did with track cycling or with track and field or whatever. Always gives ideas of,
mm,
that's interesting, because maybe we could do that for the badminton players, because strength and conditioning is still just strength and conditioning. So
mm,
whatever you apply on a track cycling sprinter might work on a badminton player to create the exact same adaptations.
mm,
It might not be relevant, but it might be.
mm, mm,
So I think we have a lot of sparring on that one. Then I think I'm really lucky that the coaches are very open to new ideas.
mm,
So instead of saying just shut up and make them stronger, they actually listen a lot to crazy ideas. And of
mm,
course, there are a lot of crazy ideas, and some of them are pretty fast put out to the side and said, it's not relevant. It's fun,
mm.
not relevant.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we don't do that. So again, I think they are really good at setting the frame for yeah, where my thoughts should go. And then, of course, lastly, I really like to play with movement. I
Mm,
find that so extremely interesting. And when I had been working with badminton for a couple of years, I just found out I needed to know more.
mm,
So I started playing badminton myself. So I joined a club for just
mm,
recreational badminton players, twice my age, most of them, but with a coach that
mm,
just could give me some basics on how to hit the different hits and how to move in the court, and just being kind of learning to play badminton myself have given me a lot of ideas to maybe that could transfer to elite level if I get them to do this and that. And again, very important not to say that I am at an elite level in badminton, because I'm really not, although I feel like it.
mm.
But it's just kind of, learning new stuff that way, and then coupling that with the strength and conditioning mindset.
Mm,
That just creates a lot of
mm. Yeah. Yeah, it's really fun that you tried to, or that you actually joined a club to try and train. That's that dedication on a different
right.
level.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you ever compete in badminton just for fun,
Yeah,
or is
I
it,
played
yeah,
a couple of team matches
fun?
in
Yeah,
Denmark.
yeah. Did you feel that you had an unfair advantage to other beginners, let's say, because you have worked with the top level players?
Yeah, but I
In,
think even more it gives me a disadvantage, because I believe I'm closer to elite level than the level I'm actually at. Yeah, I guess physically it would be fair to say that when I train in the club or when I play matches, that then physically I should be able to win every match, because I'm in a
Mm,
really good place there. But
yeah.
it's just obvious that not having the technique from when I was 10, but starting to work technically with badminton when I was in the middle of my 30s, it's just too late. You can learn a lot, but you can't learn all. And
Yeah.
tactically, I don't know how to set up a point, definitely.
Mm.
Yeah, but if we do
Yeah.
exercises, if we just do hitting training, and we have patterns, and I know what to do, then I can get a good workout out of it.
Mm.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. And I mean, if you get to the level where you actually can get tired from badminton, then you are then you have reached a good level.
Yeah, I
I
think
would say.
that's a good way to look at it. Yeah.
Yeah. Good. But then I have to ask you, since we've been talking a lot about you as a coach, and we talked, you wrote a little bit about this before, but I'm interested in your coaching philosophy, because you've been doing so much work with the top players in the world, not just badminton, but I've understood you works with table tennis. Was it rowers or
That's a long time ago.
swimmers?
Swimmers, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And do you differ as a coach between the sports, or is it, do you have some foundation of coaching principles that you rely upon?
I think main coaching principle may be, well, there's probably a couple, but I think the main points would be that people need to feel safe. So, and is that a coaching philosophy? Probably not, but it's kind of the basics for being able to bring your coaching philosophy into play. That people should feel safe with me, and they should truly believe that what I try to make them do is actually to help them.
Mm,
So it's not just because I'm an expert and I have read some articles and now you should do this. If
mm,
that's my approach to people, I won't have any athletes to work with, because no one will believe that it does a positive difference. So I guess that's just the pillars that need to be in place at first to build the foundation, is that we need to know each other at
mm,
some level that's just not a level where I tell you what to do and then you get better, because it's not that
mm,
simple. I think spending time in the sport, and me being extremely privileged to be in badminton for so many years, gives me a lot of relations with the coaches that has been there for a lot of years and the players that's been there for a lot
mm,
of years. So, and so it's relation work, first of all. It's people work. And then when that's established and we have a relation where it's like, yeah, we know we want to help each other. I want to help you and you want to get better, and you actually believe and hope that I might be able to help you with it.
mm,
Then we can begin putting things in and do some of the things that you do not want to do, because there will be things you don't want to do to get in the direction you need to go. But if you hate me, you probably won't do it, or you won't do it as well, because we're not
mm,
a system where the federation or Team Denmark just says you have to do this, and if you don't do that, you're out. Because
mm.
we don't have enough players, we don't have enough athletes in Denmark to do that.
Yeah.
So we need to be caretakers at the same time. So we need to be more diplomatic, and we
Mm,
need to take things slower sometimes. And if we try to rush things, usually we lose the athletes or the relation to build on. So I
mm,
guess that's the main principle. And the next principle is in the same category, that we're not enough coaches. I mean, we are 5 people in Team Denmark doing strength and conditioning with federations. We have
yeah.
30 federations we're supporting, maybe 28, 30, something like that. And if we take
Yeah.
all the athletes that we could work with, it's around 600 to 800 athletes.
Yeah.
The math just doesn't work here. So we have a lot of talk on athlete education. We know that if the athletes perform better in training if we are able to be there together with them, just as a badminton coach should be at the badminton courts when they're training. But they need to be able to train much more than just decent when we're not there. So we need to educate them. I'm not traveling with them 25 weeks a year. I'm maybe with them 3 or 4 times a year, max. All the other tournaments, they need to be able to reflect on what's working and what's not working, and they need to be able to be self-regulative.
Mm,
So we put a lot of education into our coaching.
yeah. Um, Sounds like the way to go. But then if you take it, if we zoom in a bit, so let's say that you and let's say I became a Danish citizen and I, for some reason, became really good at badminton. at a late age, and we were to work with each other in the gym. What would you say is your approach to a new athlete in the gym? What is your main things that you focus on? And let's say I'm just like a standard badminton player. I am what you expect, not out of shape as I am right now. So, okay. So how would you start the first session, and what would you look on?
Usually we would start by sitting down, you, me, and then the coach for your category, and just talk about, okay, now we're going to start up a program around you. And what are your thoughts in that? What do you see you could, what do you aim for in your strength and conditioning? Just to have kind of it's one thing that I can see where I want to put you, but if you see another way you want to go, then already we have a problem, or might have a problem. So can we find kind of like a goal that we can all agree on, that okay, so I can always find a lot of things you could be better at, because a lot of athletes could be a lot better in a lot of areas. And if we try to do it all, it just collapses. Instead of saying you need to be stronger, faster, more resilient, and more endurance trained, then if you say, I really feel that I get tired in the third set always, and then my performance just drops, then it's easy to say, oh, so maybe endurance is where we start, because you feel it, and you might be able to feel the change if we do something in it. So you're already motivated to go that way. And I can see that's one of the ways we need to go. Then, of course, I know that you need to be even stronger as well, but we can't do it all at once. So let's just park that and go for the one that you can see yourself in as well. So that's maybe the main start, that we need to get we need to find a common direction. And of course, that might be a bit back and forth, because ultimately it's the coach that decides, not me, but the badminton coach that decides what does this player need to be top level in 2, 4, 6 years, whatever. And then we're going to start up in the gym. And usually we'll do that by, you probably have been training some. So I would ask you to see the programs you've been doing. And then usually I would be with you in the gym a couple of times, where we just look at what you've been doing and how you've been doing it. And then the exercises you've been doing are probably those that you are pretty okay with doing. And then I would say, okay, we start in that. And of course, I always have my ideas about which kind of squat movement is the best squat movement for your category and your type style of play. But it's just exercises. So 1 or 2 or 3 or whatever version of squat, that's not the thing that makes you world champion. So let's just start with something you know. And if you're really good at that, then okay, we build on that. And then we maybe start to do something that's similar to it, and kind of expand from there. So usually I would just start with actually what you've been doing. And then within 3 sessions, I have begun to change things, either in how you move in the different exercises, or maybe swapping this exercise for something else that I think I know worked with other players. And then we find our way into your program.
And how many times a week would we see each other?
That depends mainly on the federation, on how they prioritize you. So if you are the next men's single world champion within the next 4 years, if everything goes right, then you would probably be prioritized very highly. And then I would probably have 2 to 3 sessions with you a week. And if you're not there, if you're just at the center and you might be a good player, but we don't know at what level yet, but you're good enough to be here sparring, and we know you can be probably top 30, something like that, then we would probably start with 1 session a week together. And then throughout the year, the coaches sometimes say, okay, right now we need to move this player for the next 2 months. So now everything is on him or her, and we have to down prioritize the others. But then on the other, when we would go past the World Cup or whatever, then we begin to do this and that. So it's always a bit, it's floating throughout the year.
Yeah, but it must be tough for you as well, because depending on when you start with the player, it might be the worst time. There's 4 months of intense competitions where you can't push them in the gym, so you really can't figure out what's going on. Do you just Do you then just focus on looking at the technique of different exercises because that's not as intense, or how would you approach a situation like
Yeah.
that?
I'm very technique focused.
Yeah,
I want them to lift well before they lift heavy,
yeah,
because when they lift heavy, it should be done well. But again, if we have a young player, then we have more time, and then I'm not as
yeah,
stressed about getting results fast. And I would say that the example I just gave on how we should do it is not at all how we always do it. Because if I start up, I think last year I had a startup with a player at a round right now, beginning of June. And I think I saw that player one time in June and then again in September.
mm,
And that's not a good startup, but that's just how it is with traveling and competitions
yeah,
and whatever. So of course it's not always as nice. So, and that being the case just makes me emphasize the technique part even more,
mm,
and the not lifting to fatigue or failure unless the athlete is really, really lifting, training well. Because
mm,
some athletes are within 2 sessions, I can say, okay, wow, you know how to lift, and you can feel when it's RM or when you have 2 reps in reserve, you actually just navigate this perfectly. So I'm not
mm,
afraid to let you push it when you feel fresh, go all in. And when you're not fresh, you just, yeah, draw the handbrake. And
mm,
for other athletes that I'm not as certain of the quality of work they can do, it would be much more about, okay, this is the program now. Try to do it, and try to when this program feels easy to do or easier to do, so you don't get a sore and you don't have back pain or whatever. Then we can talk about kind of turning a bit up, but it's not a goal right now to be stronger. It's just a goal
mm.
to be able to do this program well. Yeah,
Yeah. And then how would you, because now like you're not responsible for taking care of injuries, right? It's
that's the
you're
physio.
taking, yeah, exactly. So I understand, of course, that you have to collaborate a lot with the players to understand what they can and can't do. From my point of view, like just looking outside, the best in the world, they probably always have some sort of pains, like it's
Mhm.
some knee is bothering them during a squat. Uh, something is not doesn't feel like you're, when you're 16 and you're fresh, and so how do you balance that? If a player feels, I feel some pain on the outside of my knee during a squat, do you abort the exercise, or how do you handle that?
Well, I think I've become a bit more pragmatic in that area about if you have pain here and we can't work with it 2 times a week because you're traveling and playing badminton and I'm traveling with some of the other players and whatever, so we see each other once a month, then I just know it's not a good setup to push through.
Mm,
Then sometimes I would just, or often I would just say, okay, if it doesn't hurt in a leg press, we do leg press. I would
yeah.
rather do squats, but leg press is still a really good exercise. So I think more and more, and especially more than when I was younger, I'm not as afraid to throw away a good exercise and do a worse exercise, which is good enough,
Mm,
because we still have time. So I think because that's maybe the main thing also that's changed, that people are getting, when they come into the center as 18, 19, 20 years old, they are definitely better physically than they were 20 years ago.
mm,
But they all come in now with an injury already.
yeah.
They all have a jumper's knee or have had it, or Achilles tendon that's been, yeah, what's it called? Inflamed.
Yeah.
So or shoulder, whatever. So they are definitely, they are in better shape, but they already feel the effects of hard training in another way in a younger age now. So that means when they came into the center 10 years ago, they were just in bad shape, and we could just put stuff on them. And if we did that gradually and slowly over a couple of years, we could just build. And
Mm,
now when they come in, we can all, from day one, we can say that exercise is probably not the one we're going to use. We're never going to go for a full squat with you because you already had 2 operations in your knee, or you just have pain in your knee all the time. So it's not the investment. It's not worth the investment to try to get a good deep squat because it costs too much. So I think there's a lot of exercises that we would like to do that we don't do, but always from a reason.
Yeah.
And of course, when we decide that, I'm always sparring with the doctors and the physiotherapists about should we try to, because I still believe everybody could learn to squat well, even post-operation and all that. We know that from other sports, but sometimes you can't do it in the amount of time you have when you have to play badminton at the same time. So we really discuss a lot about which exercises should we maybe take out, or at least take them out for half a year, and then maybe try to reintroduce. And if they feel something again, or we see something again, okay, it's just out, and that's okay, because we know we can put something else in. There's a lot of ways to get stronger.
Yeah. That must also be a bit annoying for you that you have created this plan, you're excited, and then it's okay, we have to one step back. Because I just have to ask, because I'm now really curious, but let's say we have some really heavy squats that you want me to do. Can't do squats, but leg press is fine. Would you have me do a 3-rep set on a leg press? Would you do the same number of sets and reps, or would you change something there?
No, I would probably do pretty much the same. If you could do maybe an even pretty deep leg press, then it's just as good as a squat, at least for the legs. Maybe not as much for the glutes and not for the back, but for your back, it's maybe better. So yeah, I think I'm not as afraid to just transfer one exercise to another exercise and then just do that. And sometimes it works well. And sometimes the athlete says, it doesn't feel right, or I don't feel like push as hard, or whatever. And then we try something else. Sometimes we do a combo where we say, okay, all the heavy power work we do in a machine because it's easier and it's safe and you don't feel anything wrong with it. So that's where we go heavy. And then in the warm-up routine or cool-down routine, you still have some deep squats where we try to see if we on the side can get you within nice movement, pain-free and strong movement again. And sometimes it works, and sometimes it's just like, okay, now we've done that for a year, and it's not really progressing. So, okay, deep squats is just out. And that's fine, because we can do something else. Yeah.
Okay, but let's say we have, you get a totally injury-free player, 18 years old, and we're going to compare it to a 32-year-old, just a late bloomer, let's say. Would you have a difference of the perfect exercise that you want a badminton player to do? Would those be the same, just different reps, sets, volume? Or how would you approach that? If you just go whatever you want.
I think they would be pretty similar. Although we do individualized programs for all players.
Yeah.
Then the core of a strength training program is very similar for player to player and double categories. And even if you look at other athletes, it's pretty much the same. So I would say for badminton players, it's the kind of when we start, before we start picking it apart, then usually I would have 3 leg exercises in a strength training program. And that would be, and usually we would do an A or a B program that they switch in between. And one of them has more unilateral and one has more, so 1 leg exercises, 2 leg exercises, and changing between that just because both are really good to have in the program. So we always have some kind of squat movement, if it's half squats or sumo squats or deep squats, but almost everyone squats until they cannot do it anymore for some reason.
Yeah.
And then most of them will have some sort of deadlift variation, which can be all the variations again. And then usually we have maybe something in the machine. A lot of the players do heavy slow resistance in the end of the program, just because we know it's good for the tendons, and we know the tendons are under severe pressure in badminton. So if you ever had a jumper's knee, even if you never had a jumper's knee, we would still put that in just to see if we can build your tendons so you don't get a jumper's knee, even though we don't really know if it works. But it's then again come back to why do we do it? Well, it does affect the tendons well, and at the same time you build a really great form of strength endurance in your thighs if you do 12 reps that takes 6 seconds each and it's heavy. And that's just great training,
Yeah.
at least for the end of the session. And then usually we will have 3 upper body exercises, 1 push and 2 pulls.
Mm.
And sometimes the shoulder says, no, not this movement. And then we try to find something else.
Mm.
So that's kind
Yeah.
of the core of all programs. And then for some people, there's a bit more focus on the legs, or we have another approach to that. For some of them, because they're strong enough, we take away the upper body because it shouldn't get heavier. And you don't hit harder if you're strong enough, and you get stronger. You just get heavier. Maybe you even hit men less hard. So yeah, I think for 18, 32, it would be pretty much the same. But 32-year-olds should do a lot less work, either on court or in strength room or both places, because they need a lot more time to recover.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I have to ask, you said 2 pulling movements and 1 pressing. What is the reasoning behind that?
That when we look into the biomechanics and what creates a foundation to be able to accelerate, so overhead throwing motions, just like when you hit a smash, then it's probably because most people are not too weak to hit hard. We have a lot of weak badminton players that hit really hard, and we have seen strong players that doesn't hit hard. So kind of the agonists of the movement, because the speed is so high, the force is extremely low. So you don't need to be strong to hit hard, but you need to break the racket and you need to break your arm. So you need to be strong to create the breaking of the movement. There's a lot of, probably, it seems like there's a lot of antagonist co-activation that stands in the way of hitting as hard as you can, or throwing as hard as you can. So if we can create a system that has a better break, so we can switch on the brakes later in the movement, we can get more force, or more, not force, but power, speed, most of all.
Yeah.
And it's the braking that's hard for the body. So if your shoulder breaks or if your elbow is under pressure, it's probably the braking movement that messed it up more than the agonist driving the movement.
Yeah.
Then it could be more, it could be less exercises. But again, if we go into just the average program and it has to take about an hour to maybe an hour and a half, then that's the amount of exercises we can put in before it gets too much.
Yeah. But so it's always full body sessions, and
For most people, yeah.
Yeah. And 1 to 3 times a week, or how often?
Yeah, if we can match it in the weekly schedule, and if you want to build up, so if you have target of adapting, then it needs to be 3 times a week, probably. Yeah. Yeah, and then we know that actually 1 time a week is enough to maintain for quite a long time. But again, for the older players, it's court time that's most challenging for them to recover from, actually. So they can usually do maybe a bit more strength or more of the high force, high power strength, but then they need to turn down time on the courts.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It's very interesting to hear your perspective on this, because it's not something you pick up on social media if you're scrolling through strength and conditioning for badminton. It's not usually what you find out. So
True.
It's really nice to hear. And while we're talking about injuries as well, so in your opinion, what are the most important factors for an athlete to avoid injuries?
Lack of recovery. That's the most important thing, or getting enough adequate recovery. Yeah. And I think there's a lot of people that over optimize. And again, depending on age and where you are, because I think just playing all the tournaments you can play in a year, then you already do not recover enough. Because if you take jet lag into account, travel fatigue, then the amount of fatigue you accumulate in a year is just crazy.
Yeah.
And if you then at the same time want to train really hard and become stronger and more endurance, then it's just, yeah, that's too much. And then of course you sleep not you don't sleep enough because you're on your screen and everybody is on social media 4 hours a day. And that's, we know now that that's not really good. That's detrimental to performance and to training responses as well. So
Mm.
yeah, I think being young and trying to train as much as people around you tell you you need to train and play all the tournaments and travel, and not being able to manage yourself in modern life perfectly,
Mm.
because that's really, really difficult also for old guys. I think that's under recovery is probably the main reason for the amount of injuries we see.
Yeah. And do you think it's the same if you go down a few levels, or does it switch up to being not strong enough, or would you still say it's under recovery? That's the issue.
I think it's obvious that there's a lot more training in off season for young people now than there were before. I remember
Mm.
talking to Hans Christian Willinghus the other day about when he started at the center here. I think maybe he was 18 or 19. Just before that, when he was playing in his local club, all summer badminton courts were closed. So
Mm.
he had 2.5 months every year in the summer where he didn't play badminton. And then he played
Oh.
tennis and went to the beach and had a vacation.
Yeah.
And if you look at young people at around 16, even 14-year-olds, they train all summer.
Yeah.
Courts are open, we optimize early. And I
Yeah.
think definitely what we see when people come into the center as 18, 19-year-olds is that they are already optimized a bit too much. So they train too heavy too early. And
Mm.
maybe not with the, sometimes it's because of bad technique, but mainly it's because they train too much and recover too little.
Yeah, I have that. So we are typically in Sweden as well. We have from June till mid of August, the 2.5 months that we're not training too much. But now I work as a coach now,
Mm,
and we have the luxury of having the whole like the members can go and train as much as they want. And my my younger players, they live in the hall right
mm,
now. And I'm I'm trying to tell them to, you need to do something else. Go swim, go, do something else. It doesn't have to be badminton all the time, but it's all like it's the only thing they want to do.
mm.
I'm like, do you want to hang out with your friends?
Yeah,
No. Yeah. Do you want to play? I'm trying to, like the opposite of like 15, 20 years ago. Go play video games. Do
yeah,
something else.
yeah.
Like, but I can't lock the hall, so it's I'm not forcing them, but they just love to be there. So would you say that in my situation, what would you do? What would you have the players do that just want to be in the hall all the time?
Oh, it's so difficult because
Yeah,
if
yeah.
there's
Sorry for that
joy and if
question.
it's not structured, then it doesn't cost as much.
Mm,
So if you're young enough, then training isn't as structured, and then it's more about fun and just chilling in the courts. And I think
mm,
that's fine.
yeah.
Young people can take a huge amount of training actually without crashing. So it's more, I think, when you about the teenage years, and when you start really growing, or maybe actually when you have grown quite a bit, and then
Mm,
you start, it's getting serious. So now it's not
yeah.
just hang around in the courts. Now it's structured training. There's a coach that's planned this for you. Then I think that's where it can get too much. I think children playing badminton and playing with badminton, I don't think there's a problem with that. They can do whatever. And again, back to, I think if we look at even smaller children and what they do on a playground, what they do of plyometrics on a playground,
Mm,
jumping
mm,
down from stuff. If you
mm,
did that as an adult and you just scaled the playground up,
mm,
they did that in Norway at some point with one of the athletes. You should see that. It's amazing. One of the skiers,
mm,
where they built a playground that matched the size for him. And then I think he had to play. He just had to do what a toddler of 3 years old
yeah.
did on a playground. He had to do the same on the adult playground. And he couldn't handle it, and the toddler just played for 2.5 hours. So
Yeah.
again, when you go far enough down in age, if it's not structured or planned by someone that just says you need to do this,
Mm,
I wouldn't worry about it. But
mm,
when you have an age where now it's about me wanting to be the best in the world, and I set my day up to be the best in the world, I think that's where you need to watch it a bit.
mm,
When you start to run, do intervals, and you start to lift heavy 3 times a week because you want to be the strongest 17-year-old there is, and you play badminton every day and you play matches
mm.
every weekend, then at some point someone needs to say, okay, now we focus on this and we put this to rest for.
Yeah. Yeah. That sounds good. Yeah, my players are youngest is about 12. In this, like those that just live in the hall, and oldest is like 18. So it's a big gap. But I just had to get the expert opinion on this because I've been trying to do some fun things that isn't workout. But yeah, I appreciate your answers.
Yeah, and I
Because
think
now I can.
just important not to say I'm really not an expert on 12 to 18-year-olds
Yeah,
because my working area is definitely above that. So from 18 years old and up.
yeah,
So of course, yeah, I have an opinion and I know some things, but I'm definitely not an expert exactly on how to build that. I just know if you do too much too
yeah,
early, and I don't know what that is,
yeah,
then you might have a problem for the rest of your career.
yeah. Yeah, but that's all they need to know that you've said that part, because then we can then have the experts that backing everything. So that's perfect. But yeah, I've seen we've been talking for a long time. I could stay here all night, but I won't take more of your time. But I have a few probably quick questions
Yeah,
that I just want to go through, if you
sure.
have time.
Yeah, of
Yeah.
course.
So in the field of strength and conditioning, there's a lot of trends,
Mhm.
of course. And if you're scrolling on Instagram, you probably get some headaches sometimes looking at things.
A lot.
What trends have you seen now and that you think are going away? Which trends do you think will stay? Blood flow restriction, sauna, cold baths, all of those. The barefoot training, all of those things.
Yeah. Oh wow, there's been a lot of strange things.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I think in strength and conditioning, especially, there's a lot of things where a lot of communication on if you do this exercise, then you will
mm,
never have back pain, or
mm,
this this program fixed my whatever. There's a lot of like
mm.
magic bullets
Yeah,
stating
yeah,
that if you do this, then you get this result. And
mm,
we just know that isn't true. But a lot of the exercises might actually be a great exercise
mm,
as a supplement for whatever or substitute for some of
mm,
the other things you've done. So I think I find a lot of inspiration actually scrolling. I get a lot of headaches
mm,
from it as well.
mm.
There's really a lot
Yeah,
of dumb stuff. But mainly the statements are stupid. There's a lot of great
mm,
exercises out there that I think, okay, wow, I think maybe we could use this in some way. It doesn't do what they promise it will do. But for this player that has this problem, this could be more fun than the exercise I gave her the other day, for example.
mm,
Then I think if
yeah,
you go into recovery, it's just exploded the last couple of years. So everybody's talking about wearables, especially, and what
mm,
they track and how you're sleeping. And you need,
mm.
if you slept bad one night, just eat extra creatine and then everything's great. And wow, I think especially in
Mm,
nutrition, we really
yeah,
fight with this
yeah,
about if you just do this and then you have to take this and eat this, which is just that's really wrong. A lot of the things that's communicated there, and that's really
mm,
hard for normal people and for athletes as well to be able to say, "Wow, that sounds too good to be true,"
mm,
but it is. So I think there's a lot of athletes that take too much creatine, even though I really support taking creatine because there's
mm,
great stuff in that. There's a lot of people eating way too much protein
mm,
because we're not strength athletes. So
mm,
we don't need to eat like a CrossFitter. Probably the most CrossFitters doesn't need to eat like a CrossFitter.
mm,
So there's just so many things where we where we are told something is more optimal, and then we do it. But for you especially, or for you in that situation, that's not optimal. And the different, I think that the hardest part in that, as being an expert in an area, is that my answer is always the boring answer. When people, and a lot of the players have really, they enjoy, I think, coming to me with a reel and saying, "Have you seen this? I thought about doing that," and then I know I'm going to say, "You shouldn't, because this and that." So uh, it's much easier to sell a product if you can make it fun and sexy. And usually, what makes people world-class athletes is all the boring groundwork and doing all the basics right. It's not the creatine that makes you a world champion. It's not this exercise. It's not this way to hit a shuttlecock. So yeah, I think we fight a lot with that.
Yeah.
Blood
And
flow
it feels.
is
Sorry,
one.
what did you say?
Yeah, blood flow restriction is just one of the trends. I would say, okay, that's really good. There's a lot of good stuff, and we use that quite a lot. It's it feels new, but it's from the 2000s, early 2000s. They started doing it, and in the 2010s, it started to get recognition in like the wider scientific areas. So we use that quite a lot. I think working with heat, stress, and working with heat in recovery can be really well. I'm a big fan. Sauna or steam bath as a recovery means, yes, if you do it right. If you do it wrong, it's the opposite. It doesn't help you.
What is the right way to do sauna?
That's a difficult question, but it's easy to get dehydrated if you are heating your system, and if you're dehydrated, you're just not recovering as well. So if you're struggling with sitting in the sauna, so if you go, like in Denmark, we have a lot right now of sauna goose. I'm not sure what it's called in English, but a session where you have a supervisor that goes around with a towel, and he puts on some scents, and it should stimulate all that. And usually it's really hot, and it's so hot that your system is really working and stressing, and it feels good, and you feel relaxed afterwards, but you are definitely not more recovered afterwards. So if you recover too hard, it's not recovery. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and just to go back to the blood flow restriction, I think I was somewhat double play. I think I've seen them play badminton with some.
Yeah.
I forget what they're called. I have them at home, but I forgot what they're called. The cuffs, yeah. And it must be horrible to play with those. I've tried it during leg. Yeah, it feels like it's just hobby.
Yeah, it's kind of the worst pain, and it feels like you're getting injured.
Yeah.
But it's actually, and of course, it is painful, and you shouldn't do it for too long, and you shouldn't work too explosively with it, because that's not what we try to target. But there's definitely something in creating that very, very acidic environment within the muscle that we can't do it as quick in any other way. So it's again, why can it be good? It's not because we can't do it in other way, but we can do it within minutes this way instead of doing it within 30 minutes. So we can save time and still get adaptations when we do that. And it's not as painful on court as if you sit in a leg press or knee extension and just work the same muscle group in the classic protocol, because that is so painful.
But is it to get the same stimulus with reduced load, or what's the purpose of doing that on court?
Yeah, we do it as a finisher mainly. So trying to really get the thighs to burn in the end of the training, but doing that for 2 sets of 4 to 5 minutes. And then it's so in 10, 12 minutes, it's done, instead of doing a hard finisher where you press the rest of the system. So it gets really hard for the thighs, the way we work, but your pulse, that's just recovery work. So in that way, we can target one thing and we can dismiss another thing. And if we had to target the thighs on the same way doing it on a bicycle, then the pulse would skyrocket, and then we wouldn't get when we get more pulse work, we would have more to recover from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. And the AI bubble we're living in. How will or has depending on how one has AI affected your job, other coaches? It could be not just strength and conditioning, badminton coaching. What's your experience?
My experience is not that much yet. There's a lot of recreational athletes that use programming from AIs, and I know a couple of the athletes do it sometimes just to get inspirational. Give me 16 core exercises.
Yeah.
They're usually pretty okay. But yeah, and I think we talk a lot about it in Team Denmark as well, that it's really a good tool to cook down a lot of knowledge to 3 bullets take home messages. It's just not always the right take home messages.
Yeah.
So hopefully we won't see too much of it. I think in the data analysis, it can be a huge add-on, being able to crunch down data a lot faster instead of having people do that, and maybe tagging badminton players' matches to get the analysis out. I think that will be a huge help at some time, but it's not yet. I haven't seen anything yet that has been a big help.
Yeah. What would or what AI tool, if you could just create one out of the air right now that would help you immensely, what would that be?
Well, I think if we could get video analysis on training and matches where it could differentiate between the how many takeoffs do you have that are single legs and 2 legs, and how many lunges do you do, and but not just that, because there's a lot of way to do a lunge. So when is it a hard physical demanding lunge, and when is it just actually a small lunge that doesn't cost you that much? If we could get some more reliable data, I have to say, on that, valid and reliable, that would be interesting, because I think I haven't seen a work demand analysis on badminton scientifically done since 2004 or 8 or something like that. So,
Oh, wow.
and the sport has changed, and now it's going to change again. So exactly what do you need as a men's singles player? Exactly what do you need to be able to do as a women's singles player? And of course, it's not a fixed number, but it's probably within a range where you need a critical amount of strength, a critical amount of speed, a critical amount of something. But I would like to know the critical amount.
Yeah.
How many lunges do you do in a week of training? I have no idea. I would like to know it.
Yeah. I would guess quite a few.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's so funny when we see like in a program, because I've tried just asking ChatGPT to do something just because it's fun to see what they would do for a badminton player, and it's like, yeah, do 3 sets of 10 lunges.
Yeah.
And it's okay, and it's like there's no context. It's just it's quite fun to see the AI solutions to how it thinks. Yeah, because I remember when there was a lot of talk about personal trainers will be out of job because you can ask ChatGPT to do it for them, and it's you could, but maybe you shouldn't.
Yeah, the product is really not yet that good.
No.
I just tried the other day actually sitting down and using. We have our own AI in Team Denmark as well, and prompt that to tell me, okay, what are the changes that are going to come from playing 3 sets to 15 and the clock from when the ball is down and you need to serve again. And of course, it said what you could imagine, like I touched upon in the beginning, that probably because the matches are going to be shorter, they're going to be played at a higher tempo. But if anyone could play it in a higher tempo now, that would still make sense. So if I'm not sure they're able to play at a higher tempo, maybe they can play at the highest tempo for longer of a match because it's a shorter match. But just playing, if I had to play 2 sets to or 3 sets to 5, could I smash any harder? No. Can I go quickly to the net to kill? No, because I'm not getting faster just because we changed the system. It's I understand why the AI would say that. It's just like you can't set it up like that. It's too simple. There will probably something is going to be quicker, or more duels will be at the highest speed. But why should another system make the speed higher over years? Maybe, but not at the beginning.
Yeah. No. No, I agree, and it's still like I mean, looking at some older matches with Lindan and Li Xiongwei, when they had their really close matches.
Mm.
I think I'm not really sure we can play physically more faster than they were playing. Not much, anyways. Or
No.
Low King Yu, for instance, like that must be really close to the physical limit. So then it's more of racket technique and faster shuttles or something like that
Yeah.
that can make it speed up. But yeah. Okay, and I will finish with 2 questions.
Mhm.
What is something, in your opinion, that's super overrated in strength and conditioning for badminton players?
That's really a hard question.
Yeah.
Well, I think, man, that's really interesting. I'm not sure actually what to say. I think sometimes, yeah, well, I think strength training for the upper body to hit harder.
Mm.
I think that's, at least it's not done well in a lot of cases. If you're really weak, it's one way to hit harder. But most badminton players at a high level are not that weak because they wouldn't be at a high level if they were. So I think there's a lot of, maybe back to the influences and what we see on Instagram, that this exercise fixes everything.
Mm.
If you have that approach that you need to be able to squat deep, and if you don't do that, it doesn't work. It's just too simplistic. There's not one exercise. There's not one movement. There's not one way to do. So if you get too religious, and I definitely see that somewhere around, maybe not the highest level because I don't think it fits there, but people training only visuals, or people
Mm.
training only 1RM, or people training never 1RM. I think if you step into an alley like that and say, this is how it should be, this is the way, then that can't be right.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's hard when we live in an era where we have to get clicks and views and likes, because you won't get any likes from posting. You could try this.
No.
It might work like that, and that's the worst part. I've uploaded like one video where it's just a few exercises where it's do this for a hardest match. But it's more like how to use your body, not like do push-ups. It's more like using the whole body with med ball slams and
Yeah.
stuff like that. But it's still, then you write in the caption far down, it's like, yeah, but fix the technique first. But
Yeah.
it's, I don't know. I feel
I think a
embarrassed
lot
to say
about
it.
it when when I use Instagram and when I put in a story or do a reel or whatever, that I really would like to explain more why I
Mm,
do this and how I do it and which period of time we are in to do this. But it's just like, if I do that, it would be a full-time job,
yeah,
and that would be so much text.
yeah,
So it's just like, I just gave up on that and say, okay, now I'm gonna show what we do, and then people can
mm,
always write and ask.
mm,
And I would like to answer if they have a question about the exercise. But
mm,
I'm so afraid when I apply a story that this is interpreted like, if you do this, you're gonna be as
mm,
good as the badminton player, or this
yeah,
exercise is better than something else. Because in my experience, that's really not the case.
yeah. No, it's hard, and especially in your position, because you have a lot of power. I mean, you have authority. You're working with some of the best players in the world. You've been working with them for a long time,
Mm.
over many years, doing great results. So if you say something, people will buy into it. Yeah. So but that's also something that's also why I want to have you on the podcast, because I know you use your power in a good way. It's not to glorify yourself in any way. It's just, this is what we do.
I'm really
This is how I
happy
think.
that that's how you interpret it, because that's really what
Yeah.
I aim for. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's been, and it's fun for me to see what you are doing, because it's, even though I don't work with players at that level, it's still good inspiration for me as well. And sometimes it's just fun movements that I haven't seen, and it's like, okay, we can try. It's just fun.
Yeah. And I really think we should, I really believe in, we should find inspiration that way. I learn so much from when I'm on tour and we go around in the gyms, and then
Mm.
China is there, or
Yeah.
France or whatever, and they do their thing. And you never know if do they only do it here because of the equipment we have here, or
mm,
do they do it at home, or is this kind of what they believe in is the way to go?
mm,
And
mm,
sometimes you can talk about it, and sometimes there's just no chance to do that. And I always find myself in an area where I kind of look at something and say, "Wow, that's a stupid exercise. Why do you do that?" And then I remember, oh, there's probably a pretty good reason why they do that. Because if I look at my programs, I would think the same. Wow, that's a stupid exercise. Why do you do that
mm,
one? Why don't you do
mm,
this instead? And but with my players, I know why we don't. There's a reason behind it, and
yeah.
there's always a reason behind it. It's just so easy to look at something and say, "Wow." Either, wow, that should make all the difference in
Mm,
the world, or look at something and say, why do you do that? You should do something
mm,
else. And you just
yeah.
need to know what's behind to know if there's no such thing as a good exercise, because it depends on who you're working with and what the exercise is applied to do.
Mm, yeah. Yeah, I am the same way. But it's I've learned now, but I know that some people, yeah, they will just copy whatever the pros are doing, and
Yeah,
that's just how it is. We can't change that.
no,
But still, it's better than not doing anything. Um,
definitely.
yeah. But now I'm gonna ask you the last question. So
Yeah.
we talked about what's overrated, and
Mhm.
now I have to ask you, what is, in your opinion, the most underrated thing for badminton players?
I think, well, I think recovery for one, that is definitely one area, because it's just getting harder and harder, more and more matches to play. So if you don't recover well, you don't stand a chance. And looking at that and thinking what Matthias and Alexandra did the other day when they
Mm.
went to the finals in 3 out of 4 and went to the semi in
Yeah,
the last one of them, it's just like that's crazy, because that's exactly what you see doesn't happen anymore.
yeah,
If you play 4 tournaments in a row and you do well in the first two, then of course you don't do well in the last two, not both
yeah,
of them.
yeah,
So, and that is down to recovery, because the better you perform, the harder you need to recover to be able to get up Tuesday morning and play a match again.
yeah.
And then um, I think warm up is underrated.
Mm.
How people warm up before
Yeah.
going to a match. I still think that's a place where people can be even better.
Mm.
Of course, again, I don't know. I don't have a lot of stats, especially on the on the other players from the other
Mm.
countries, so I
Yeah.
don't know how warm they are when they go in. But I know at least some of the Danish players, I would say, I think there's something to win from performing even better in the warm up, and having an even more structured approach
Mm.
to what we do and exactly why we do it,
Mm.
instead of just, and it's still a good argument, but instead of just getting a good feeling
Mm.
of feeling the court or whatever,
Yeah.
you should do that as well. But there's some other boxes we need to tick as well in the warm up.
Yeah. And so if you had complete freedom, how would you structure a warm up?
I would start it up with something we call it a body check. It could be called anything, but it's just like 5 minutes of easy mobility exercises and
Mm.
foam rolling, just to, okay, where's my body today on a scale from 1 to 10. Am
Mm.
I a 10, or am I actually just a 6? Because then I maybe need to do something. My shoulder has been acting up. I feel it in this exercise. No, it's actually better than yesterday. Okay. So it's like a flashlight to just to check the body out. Where am I today? So that's where we
Yeah.
start.
Mm.
And then you jump on a bike, or a row work or whatever, probably a bike. And then you do just a general warm up to get heat in the system. And you do that for maybe 10 minutes, could be more, but shouldn't probably be less, because the last couple of minutes you need to press it, so you actually build up a sweat. So you're actually a lot warmer than when you sat on the bike, just muscle temperature wise. After that, I would say, okay, now it's time to see, do I have a knee that needs special attention? Then it's now I do my ISOs, or my heavy slow resistance, or specific warm up for my shoulder, elbow, knee, whatever. And when that's kind of ticked, then I can start prepare to be ready to go on court. So instead of going to court and hit the shuttle and then be ready over time, I'm ready when I start hitting the shuttle. So I do
Mm.
some lunges, I do, and I build up the intensity. I get some stretches so that all the positions I'm going to be in on court, I have been close to that position off court in control, if that makes
Mm,
sense. And then you take the court and then you start rolling at the net and you start pushing and pressing a bit and then you start hitting.
mm,
That would be
yeah.
kind of the general approach. And then, of course, what you do on court should have approach is specifically to what are you going to do in your match.
Mm,
So, of course, you need to build gradually on the intensity. And then within your court warm-up, there should be a couple of minutes where I would like you to be in the red zone, zone 5.
mm,
So 90% or above of your heart rate
mm,
and burning muscles in the legs just for a brief period of time. So you have
mm,
been there before you hit the main court.
mm, yeah.
And yeah. And the difficult thing is, when do you do that? Because then the match just before you suddenly goes into 3 sets, and then
Yeah.
you really warm, and then you need to kind of cool down and rebuild. And how much do you need to do? That's not easy. But I think if you go on court and you're not warm enough, and you haven't had all systems firing at high
Mm,
frequency, then you are not doing yourself a favor. And
mm,
especially if you go into 3 times 15, you need to be
yeah.
ready in the beginning.
Yeah. Okay, so that's interesting because that will be a big challenge because you can't know how long do they have. So when a match finishes, how long do they have before they get called up and go to court?
Usually it's a bit different from tournament to tournament, but usually it's around either 11 in the last set or around 16 in the last set. They're told, now you can't stay in the warm-up court anymore. Now you get your things in your bags
Ooh,
and stand here and wait. And then they have between 10 and 15 minutes sometimes from they are called in to they actually enter the main hall court.
that doesn't sound too good from a warm-up perspective.
Nope, that's not
That
optimal.
sounds actually really bad.
Yes. And of course, they work then usually at some point you can see, okay, now it's 16-16, it was 16-11 before. Okay, sometimes they are allowed to go back on
Mm,
court and hit a bit
okay.
more.
Yeah.
And of course, it gives them time as well to stand with the coach or with each other in the doubles, just to, okay, when we get in here, what's the tactical plan?
Mm, mm,
But I would really like them to just put on as much clothes as they can to keep muscle temperature as high as possible so they
yeah.
don't lose that, because within 10 minutes, you're back to baseline if you just stand.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a bigger challenge that I thought, because I thought it was like a few minutes after the match is done. I didn't know they had to go to a specific area before the
Yeah,
match.
usually they
Okay.
have a corner in the warm-up courts where
Yeah.
you just have to stand there and wait, and then you go in, and then you stand another place and wait,
Yeah.
and then you go in, and the line judges go out and in, and then you get in and you can hit again, but it's not a re-warm up on the court. So you need to stay warm.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. They might should look into that before they switch to 5 sets to 11 in 5 years.
Yeah. Or we need to have people, and that's what we do now. Then you need to be when, of course, you take on your training suit,
Yeah.
and then when you stand, instead of just standing, you do some quick footwork or
Yeah.
some lunges, and you don't have to do that much just to at least break how fast you lose your temperature again.
Yeah. Yeah. And would you have the same warm-up structure even before a normal training session? Would you have something more like what's it called, pre-training preparation, or some like more of the add in some sprints or something?
I would say pretty much the same in my
Yeah.
perfect dream world. I don't really. I'm not saying I'm not believing in sprinting for badminton players, but I haven't found a way to put sprinting in before.
Yeah.
It's they're not sprinters. They don't
Yeah.
sprint ever.
Yeah.
I like what you can do when you can sprint and the ability to turn on the system and be quick. But I would rather have them do footwork
Mm.
because it's similar to what they're gonna do.
Yeah.
But you can probably find a way to put it in and make it work really well. I just haven't found that way.
Mm.
So like pre-activation in that. No, I think it's a gradual build up to what you're
Mm.
gonna do when you get on court.
Yeah.
And if you can make that pretty stable and pretty much the same, then you know from day to day if you are in a better place or worse place, and how ready you are to train.
Okay. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Thank you so much for your time and for your answers. It's been a pleasure having you on as the second guest of the podcast, but it's been, I've learned a lot, and it's great to finally talk to you.
Pleasure to be on. Definitely.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I will fix this as soon as possible, and I know you will be busy preparing for the World Championship, I assume, and you probably have a lot of different things to do as well besides the World Championship.
Yeah, but mainly World Championships. That's
Yeah.
that takes up a lot of time the next couple of weeks.
Yeah. Actually, I have to ask, when do you have time to have vacations, because you're doing the whole summer?
Well, I'm lucky, at least family-wise, this year that I'm not going to China and Japan
Okay.
with the
Yeah.
squad. So when they go to China and Japan, I have vacation
Yeah.
with the family.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Nice.
Yeah, usually it's not a thing to have a vacation in the summer. Yeah. So family-wise, it's perfect. Work-wise, it's a bit more challenging to
Yeah.
not know what's going on for 2 weeks, and then we have 2.5 weeks and World Cup.
Yeah. Yeah. I get it. I get it. But yeah, once again, thank you so much.
Thank
I will
you.
stop the recording now. Uh, Perfect.